Sunday, November 9th. It's another Maryland Terrapin recap. Left the Xfinity Center earlier today. A wild finish to a game that was looking like it was headed the wrong direction. Addie Mack sparks a Maryland rally to beat Georgetown 85-66. And while the final score makes it look wider than the gap was, this was a very close game for 3/4 and a game in which Maryland was trailing heading into the fourth and final frame. I will first off want to thank Joseph Matthews for the pictures using today, and we'll use for the remainder of these recaps this year. When at games, we'll have those up on the screen for you guys. I'll get the highlights up a little bit as well. We learned a lot about this year's team, just the third game of the season. Maryland. They trailed Georgetown by 10 with a minute to play in the third quarter. Again, down by 10 with a minute to play in the third. The Terps started the final frame with a 14-2 run to keep their unbeaten season alive. They were trailing 57-51 heading into the fourth. So while it wasn't quite 10 by the time the fourth quarter started, it wasn't like it was 3. Earlier in the third, they had cut the lead to 4, and we watched Georgetown respond with back-to-back threes to immediately push their lead back to 10. And I thought they did a tremendous job of responding. That's Georgetown. But as for Maryland, Matt came alive in the fourth quarter, scoring 17 over 23 total points. Maryland put the game away with an 18-2 run in the closing minutes. While they didn't shoot the ball well from 3 for much of the afternoon, the Terps did shoot 3 for 5 during that late run in the midst of that comeback bid. And it would lead to an 85-66 margin. Again, that all happened in the fourth quarter. They were down 6 heading into the fourth. The Terps won the battle on the glass 45-27. And while 45-27, maybe that margin doesn't seem huge, but it's how or what it was comprised of. 22 offensive rebounds Maryland pulled down in this game, which was huge. And again, they were struggling to shoot the ball until late. Those second chance opportunities definitely paid off. Georgetown was led by Kai Miller's 18 points and 3 steals. We saw Akadi Hession score 14 points. I thought the two of them, along with Tori Rivera, did a good job of putting pressure on Maryland's guards in the first half and much of that third quarter as well. Georgetown did a great job with their press. Get to that a little bit later, but Addie's 23, 17 of which came in the fourth, as we mentioned. She also had a steal to lead her team in scoring. Then Leah Bartelma, she had 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Aluchi Akanawa added 11 points and 6 rebounds, along with a block and a steal. Izzy Mamadou had 10 points and 7 rebounds. I thought the Hoyas press, it really bothered the Terps it definitely bothered them for the entire first half. We saw Maryland, they've seen some press, during their first 2 games, but those 2 teams didn't execute it in the manner that Georgetown did. Again, that inability to deal with the press led to 16 turnovers in the first half. And then to compound issues, they also had 15 fouls. They weren't able to get through possessions without fouling, it seemed like. And we saw just a never-ending trip to the line for, honestly, both teams late in the first half, but Georgetown had the lead, so they were fine with that happening. Georgetown did a really good job responding, as I mentioned earlier. In that third quarter, those back-to-back threes was a huge sequence. But I feel Maryland's press is what turned things around, and that is something that Coach Freeze alluded to and several other players after the game. Specifically, that trio of Akanawa, Bartelma, and Mack. They were at the tip of the spear in that press. And that's when Maryland kind of just started to take chunks of the game at a time, like really regain a hold of the contest. We see Addie getting downhill there. And then they just didn't give it back. Coach mentioned that in the presser. She went on to say, I thought those 3 single-handedly disrupted Georgetown. Freshman point guard Leah Bartelma added, I think that our defense fuels our offense, bringing the energy with the press, with the steals. That's how we want to play. Coach Haney, Georgetown's head coach, talked about what went wrong for his group late. He mentioned in response to a few different questions, one of the things where the one-on-one defense has to be better. They have too many shooters in Maryland, which is why you couldn't go zone, because you're going to give quality shooters good looks. You're tempting, you end up kind of tempting fate. Is how many shots could a team with capable shooters miss if you're in zone? He mentioned his group. He thought one of the things that happened late as well was we were so keyed in on if we missed or made the shot, we didn't get in transition defense. Like I needed us to get into transition defense, and that's something that was evident throughout that fourth period. Finally, on what Maryland did late offensively, kind of went 4 flat on us and got downhill. And that's something you're seeing in these clips. In these clips, I've been talking for the last minute or two is here's Addie again, just getting downhill. And it wasn't just her. It was Bartelma. It was Akanawa. They all took their turns, it seemed, getting downhill and causing issues. This is such a great play. I'm going to go back to this and just bring it back just a little bit. I know this is going back to the Addie play, but Leah Bartelme right here shakes her defenders, and then that nice little drop-off pass to Ozzy Mamadou. Just crafty, really tough pass, nice finish. As for Maryland, Coach Freeze was asked about Addie Mack's scoring outburst late in this game. She said, "I love seeing it on this big stage, and she's going to have a lot more moments like this." She went on. There was some things in between there, but what I wanted to share with you guys was watching the response of her teammates was just as awesome to see the confidence they have in her. I mean, that's something you guys can see there in the clip. You can see that was them on the bench, I think. You can see that, hear them helping her up after one of the plays, which she ended up completing the and one. Or here, just where we had one where the bench was just going nuts. I'm going to try to find that one for you guys. But her getting things going, they just kept I want to say maybe the defense, right? It was just kind of a steady tide just starting to rise, and eventually, the dam burst. It started with the defense getting deflections, their press kind of really taking hold of that game in the fourth, and then the buckets. She got it going. She got it going quick. And it was just a hell of an introduction to, the Terps fans. It's one thing to hear about a freshman who's had her high school career. She put the ball in the basket, right? But it's another thing to see it on this stage. And I know it's just the third game of the season. It's not conference. That said, she doesn't have that type of outburst. But Bartelma doesn't respond the way she did. Maryland we might be having a totally different discussion this evening, which is Maryland falling out of the top 10 because the turnovers, they couldn't plug the gaps because they kept turning the ball over. They kept fouling. Thought they did a good job in the second half of limiting both of those things. Some notes, takeaways, just that I had of my own. Saylor Poffenberger's versatility. She didn't shoot the ball at all well today. And she's a very good shooter, but I think she ended up going 1 for 7. But it didn't matter because she did so many other things, so many of the little things. Brenda mentioned after the game that, she's the glue, she's a connector, and you saw those things. She finished the game, I believe it was a game-high 12 rebounds. She also had 5 assists and 3 steals. She was a part of a lot of those sequences where, get the typing there in the game or tweeting, Maryland, great ball movement. Sailor's on the floor for most of those moments. She just did a good job moving the ball and not letting her, a bad shooting night affect the rest of her game. They don't win this game without her contributions. Possibly because of foul trouble in the first half or just because she wanted to try it. Brenda's always tinkering with lineups. I was intrigued by Freeze's, quote-unquote, big lineup. It was Maria Boyko, Izzy Ozzy Mamadou, Yarden Garzon, Saylor Poffenberger, and Leah Bartelma. Obviously, Bartelma being the only guard, small player on that lineup at 5'8", 5'9", or whatever. But from there, it's your guards essentially in that lineup where Poffenberger and Garzon is 6'2", 6'3". Then you go to, 6'4" players and 6'3" players, or 6'3" player and 6'4" player, and Ozzy Mamadou and Boyko. I thought that group solid. I'm looking forward to seeing that group more. We'll see what that looks like during this non-conference portion of the schedule, or something that we'll be reflecting on later this year during conference play. The other thing walked away from this game with is, On media day, Brenda talked about the defense, but she also said that she felt this year's group had more firepower than last year's group, which is great. But to me, what has seemingly made it special, again, super small sample size, is that defense is what's important. So for defense to be that important to a group with this much firepower, seems like a coach's dream. Even today, which was a tough day defensively, with all the fouls and things of that nature, they gave up 66 points. Last time we were here talking about their goal wanting to be to hold teams to 60. They were off by 6 in a game where they fouled incessantly in that first half. Also, just really enjoyed their response to their first bout of adversity. That was the biggest thing. I was excited about that. Coming out of halftime, looking to the third quarter, regardless of what happened, I just want to see how that group responds, because some of the folks that you might count on later in the year to respond, especially like as far as like guards go, there was no Schmeichel today, obviously no McDaniel. You had Garzon here along with Poffenberger, but Saylor had a really tough day shooting, and Yarden was dealing with foul trouble. So who's going to step up? How are they going to turn this thing around? And we found out it was with their youngsters. I love a job by them. As always, the freshman report that we have, Maria Boyko. She had 9 points and 2 steals in this game. I thought she gave Brenda great minutes on a night when some of the upperclassmen were in foul trouble. She ended up playing 24 minutes, but I just feel like they probably don't even get through that first half if she's not able to come in and contribute. Both of her steals were timely, and I was talking to someone next to me during the game, and it was just, she's a big, that for sure. I just don't know whether she's a 4 or a 5. You see her on her block; she has really good footwork, but she's so freaking fast, and as far as running the court as well. But just a good outing for sure, and it's great to see, with all the freshmen that they have, whether it be true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, what have you, just contribute, honestly. And she gave them 24 important minutes. Leah Bartelma, she finished with 13 points and 5 rebounds. I liked how assertive she was when Maryland found themselves trailing. She went from kind of trying to set the table to forcefully directing traffic. There's a couple plays stood out. Remember, she was telling a couple bigs of not just, hey, come screen for me, but no, I want the screen on this side. Like, it's what you want out of a floor general, right? Literally barking out the instructions, detailed instructions of what you wanted. So it was great to see that. And then we saw a little bit with that clip with breaking down her man and drop off to Ozzy Mamadou. Just her ability to break folks down. As Brenda said, all of their point guards are different, but Coach Haney mentioned that they were just going for a flat and getting downhill. All their guards were doing it. Bartelma, with 13 points. I just thought it was huge. She was 5 of 12 from the floor. I just liked how assertive she was as the team needing it, as they needed it. And then, of course, her willingness to hit the glass. She finished with 5 rebounds in this one. And one of the other things Georgetown's Coach Haney mentioned was he wants his guards to do more of is rebounding, some of those long rebounds. And just in general, you're playing a bigger team. Go in there and help on the glass. And we saw Maryland's guards go there and do that. And again, citing the conversation with Kendall Walker at the beginning of the year on media day, she talked about all 3 of them have no issue. That's all 3 of the point guards have no issue going to stick their nose in there and helping out on the glass. And we saw that in this one. Addie Mack, she mentioned, I think, last game in the post-game pressure that, Mack's offense would come. And I'm sure she didn't know that that was an outstanding bit of foreshadowing, that she would need that Maryland would be in need of that this week. But, I mean, an outstanding performance from the youngster. She did everything well in this game except shoot from deep. And again, that's nitpicking at the highest degree. She was 1 for 4. She got downhill, finished through contact. I mentioned, I think, after the opening, the regular season opener, there's a little bop in her handle, the way that she goes about it, and we got to see that getting down on this one. So looking forward to that as we continue. And that's you don't score all those points in high school. Let me get this real quick so I don't miss these numbers. because it's kind of a big deal. She scored 4,000 points in high school. Again, 4,000 points in high school. I just want to go get the numbers and make sure I don't mess anything up. She's number 2 on Minnesota's all-time scoring list with 4,687 points. She averaged 34.2 a contest. Again, that, you're really good from your area if you play D1 ball, right? Really good from your area if you make it to college to play ball. There's a lot of players with outstanding scoring averages. But to see that, just the way she goes about scoring kind of translate, and we got to see it, in just the third game. It was great. 3-level score. We got to see it in all phases in this one. I think one of my favorite shots of this game was she got the paint, got her defender, leaning towards the basket, just reverse pivoted, went to the little Dirk fade. And again, as a point guard going to that's a professional scorer. So again, just great to see that. And we saw that throughout that fourth quarter. And as it continued to unfold, we just watched someone comfortable doing what it is that she does. And she finished with I want to double check that as a game high, but she finished with a plus 25 in this game. Just a really good performance by Maryland as a whole, especially on the defensive end, to find a way to get back in the game in that manner. I know it took a little longer than I'm sure they would have liked, but hell of a job. And hell of a game from Georgetown as well. You came on the road, came into College Park, and that arena wasn't – it took a while for that arena to get that loud, and they needed a fourth-quarter rally. You were well on your way. They just couldn't close it out. So outstanding job to them as well. Coach Haney, when he was asked after the game about what this means for the area, he had a great response. Not going to get into it verbatim, but one of the things he mentioned was how good this is for the DMV. A lot of great hoopers in this area, and it's about keeping them home, which is what this can help do in terms of Georgetown and Maryland playing on a regular basis, early in the season, non-conference. Brenda touched on that as well, seeing her and any of your friends. And they hadn't been played at Georgetown since the Alyssa Thomas days. So it seems like both sides are open to it. Would love to have it. I think that's a great kind of home and home. And we know Brenda goes through, on a regular basis, plays so many teams from around the area throughout the year. But this was a really good game this early in November. So kudos to both teams for that. But for Maryland, I love a resolve, way to fight through your first bout of adversity. And they'll be at home this week on the 13th. They will be hosting Towson.